Hello and welcome to the day ahead. It is Thursday, July the 2nd. I'm Andrew Gagan. Well, the local market is set to open in the red with ASX futures off by around 0.25%. It was a mostly negative session on global markets overnight as investors reacted to comments from new US Fed Chair Kevin Warsh, who said it'll disappoint anyone who expects loose monetary policy despite President Trump's call for interest rate cuts. On Wall Street, the chipmakers were the biggest drag on the Nasdaq, with profit taking after enormous first half gains as investors rotated into more stable industrial names, which saw the Dow hit a record intraday high before pulling back. Micron fell more than 10% as investors took profits after a massive year-to-date rally, similarly with SanDisk, with the stock having risen more than 750% this year. Nvidia slipped amid broader semiconductor weakness along with Broadcom. Shares of Meta surged after announcing plans to launch a cloud business selling excess AI computing capacity. And both Apple and Microsoft gained as part of a rotation into large cap tech. Nike continued its descent after warning of a continued sales weakness in China, despite beating earnings expectations, its shares actually finishing in the green. Well, US Federal Reserve Chair Kevin Warsh said that inflation risks have come down, but said he will stick firmly to the central bank's 2% inflation target, telling a European Central Bank panel in Portugal that if people thought this central bank was going to be comfortable with an inflation objective above 2%, they would be disappointed. This as data from the Institute of Supply Management showed US manufacturing activity slowed in June after reaching a 12-month high the previous month as businesses front-loaded orders to avoid shortages and higher prices stemming from the Middle East conflict. Meanwhile, on the geopolitical front, Iran and the United States concluded a round of indirect talks with no indication of progress. Negotiators for the two countries reportedly spent 2 days in Doha discussing maritime traffic in the Strait of Hormuz and financial incentives for Iran, two pillars of the initial agreement they signed in June. US Treasury yields initially fell, then rose following Kevin Warsh's comments, the 2-year at 4.17%, the 10-year at 4.48%. Markets pricing in a 30% chance the Fed funds rate will be hiked by 25 basis points in the next meeting at the end of this month, and a 100% chance of a hike by October. Australian 3-year government bond yield futures were close to 4.4%, the 10-year fluctuated between 4.8 and 4.85%. The US dollar index up slightly on the session. The Aussie dollar has weakened further to be at 68.9 US cents. Oil extended its run of declines on signs of oversupply, with traffic through the Strait of Hormuz recovering. Brent settling near $72 a barrel. Gold rose more than 2% after softer than expected jobs data. Spot gold at around $4,070 an ounce. Copper futures were down more than 1%. Iron ore down around 1.5% to $99 a barrel. And Bitcoin bounced back to be trading close to $61,000. Locally today, we get May's trade balance, and in corporate news, Perpetual says its board has rejected a takeover offer which values the company at $2.5 billion, a 40% premium to Tuesday's closing price. It described the bid as highly conditional, which is made by an entity tied to Swedish private equity giant EQT. That is your day ahead. We'll see you again tomorrow.